Hey everybody, Hunter back again from Showtime Studios. Going to do a little video tutorial here today on something I've been asked about a couple of times, and people wanted to know how I went about doing this technique. And I've also did a demonstration at one of the shows that I went to on this subject, and it was received very well. People seem to enjoy it and learn something from it. And what we're going to be doing is creating a convex surface to a flat surface. One place you can really use this is on your dash gauges to create the convex lens. And you could also use this on tail lights if, say for instance in the kit, the tail light is a little bit too flat. You can also use the same technique to put a little bit more curve in that and still be crystal clear. And I also use it like on my Peterbilt emblems for my trucks. Those emblems have a clear coating on them from the factory that creates almost like a bubble effect on top of it. And now, speaking of those emblems, for anybody that doesn't want to take the time to do this technique, especially for the trucks, Ben Wicker from Class A Resins does sell a detail set that comes with the photo etched emblems, and they're actually just like this right here. Let's see if I can get it to zoom in here. Come on, camera, we can do this. Well, maybe we can't. There we go. That's pretty good there. These are the photo etched emblems from Model Car Garage, and these have been treated with the epoxy topping to make them convex. Now, like I say, if you want to order these in where you don't have to go through the trouble of doing this technique, you can get them from Ben Wicker. It's not real expensive. I think it's like $20 for the grill screen and the emblems, so that's another option. But what we're going to be doing today is working on a parts dash that I had, just something that was laying in the parts box, and I'm going to show you the whole technique and how easy it is to do and give you some do's and don'ts on it. So let's get started. Okay, I'll zoom the camera in here in just a minute once I show you what we're going to be using. This is the dash assembly that we're going to be doing, and let's see if we can get you can see the gauges there in the center. You got the big one in the center of it, and then there's 4 little ones on the outside of that, and then 4 underneath of it. And I'll tell you why it's taped to this piece of plastic here in just a minute. And the next thing we'll be using is just some 5-minute epoxy. This happens to be BSI Industries. I highly recommend this stuff. And when I keep this stuff on my bench, I keep it in a cup so it's already turned up on end. Because if you get a little bit cool in your hobby room or whatever, what'll happen is this stuff takes forever to drain to drain out, especially when it gets some age on it. Now these bottles here are probably, I would say, this came from Manassas, and that hobby shop has been shut down for about, I think, 3 years now. So I would say that these bottles are probably 4 to 5 years old, and they're still working, just like they did when they were new, except they're a little bit thicker in the bottles. So, as your bottles get older or whatever, just turn them up on end in a cup like this, set them over to the side, and they're there. And as soon as you pop the cap off the end of it, you'll be able to squeeze out what you need, and you're good to go. So we're going to be using that, and we're going to be using a toothpick. And I have a piece of plastic here, just a scrap piece of plastic, and I just made a circle out of a piece of tape, just 3M masking tape, but you can use any kind, Tamiya, the cheap stuff, or, whatever, because all you're doing is mixing up the epoxy on this. And I just set that down, and the first thing you want to do, well, before we get into mixing up the epoxy, because it does take, it only takes about 5 minutes to set, talking about this part that I have taped to this piece of plastic here, the reason why I've done that is when you do this technique, you want to make sure that the part that you're doing this on is setting level. And you want it to be level side to side and front to back. Because if you don't, what's going to happen is the high point of your bubble is actually going to move to one side or the other. So make sure that your part is level. Now, on this dash here, I can do all of the gauges from this position that's right here in the center. But I also have two more up here where it starts to go uphill. So how I go about doing that is I will take something like, say, my hobby knife. And when I get to those, I will just kind of raise that up and see if it's level at that point. If it levels out, then I'm good to go with that. And another thing you can do, you know, if you can do this with one hand without, you know, any issues, you can actually hold this piece level. But the thing you have to remember is you're going to have to sit here for 5 minutes and hold this if you do it that way. So I try to get it where I can get this part level and just sitting on the bench, and that way I don't have to mess with it. I can get up and go get a soda or have a cigarette or something and come back in 5 minutes and it's set up. So that's why you want to make sure that these parts are level when you do this. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of the part A of the epoxy, and you don't need a whole lot. And you just want to squeeze out a little bit. Like I say, this stuff here is getting a little bit thicker as time goes on, so bear with me on that part. And how I measure this out is I just basically put a drop down just like that, and I will come in with the part B of it and put a drop right over to the side and make the drops, you know, as close to the same size as you can. And I just had something happen here that you don't want to happen, and I will show you what that was. And that's because I didn't clean up the last time. There's a little bit of gunk on the nozzle of this, and when you're doing these clear parts like this, you don't want anything in it. So that's easy to get out, but if you make sure that nozzle's clean, you don't have to worry about doing this like I just did. So we're going to get that, we'll get that junk out of there. Put that over to the side. Okay, there we go. And now we're just going to take the toothpick and we'll blend these two together. And I just kind of go around in a circle pattern, or actually an oval pattern, and mix this. Now you don't want to do this too fast, and you don't want to swirl it too much, because you'll put air bubbles in it. And sometimes those air bubbles will not come out. They'll get trapped in the epoxy. So kind of do this slow. And when you start out mixing this stuff, you will notice it gets a white tinge to it. Don't worry about that. Don't let it bother you. That's just the chemical reaction taking place. When this stuff dries, it's crystal clear. And we've got that mixed up pretty good. And then I just spin the toothpick to get the excess off of it. Now, all you need to do with this is, like if I'm going to do these small ones right here, is just get a little bit on the end of the toothpick, not much, and you want to shoot for dropping it right in the center of your gauge, and then just lightly push that bead until it touches the side of the raised section of your simulated gauge. And make sure you get that all the way around and fill that up all the way around so it'll make a nice even curve for you, a nice dome. I've got that one looking pretty good. We'll do the bigger one in the center. So what we're going to do is get a little bit more on the toothpick. And let me see if I can bring the camera in here a little bit. Get a little bit closer to what we're doing. Alright, now I have a little bit more on there, and I'm going to do the same thing on this big gauge. I'm going to start right in the center, and I'm going to put my first drop down. And you have to work pretty quickly on this because, like I say, you only have 5 minutes for this stuff to set up, and it kicks pretty quick, and once it starts to kick over, you can't do anything with it. So all I'm doing now is just taking the 2 drops that I've put in the center of the gauge here, and I'm pushing them toward the outside edge against the raised section of the gauge. And, you know, go very slowly with this. But do it fast at the same time, if that makes any sense. Just be careful. Don't push it over the edge of that little lip, because if you do, it's going to ruin the effect that you're looking for, and your gauge won't be as clean as it should be. Okay, I've got that pushed over there. Now I'm going to add a little bit more in the center just to bring the dome up a little bit higher. And once this stuff starts getting stringy on you, you want to stop with it. Because when it gets stringy, as you pull the toothpick away, it'll tend to want to leave a string that'll drop on where you don't want it. Okay, so now we have the little dome there created. And, you know, like I say, don't rush this too much, but make sure you go at a steady pace, and just, like if you're mixing up the little batch like I did here, you may get one big gauge done and maybe two small ones. I could probably, yeah, I could come in and do a small one. I can come into this one right here and go ahead and drop that in just like that. And that's probably all I'm going to get done on this. So you just kind of walk away from it at this point. Come back in about 5 minutes. Those are all set up and ready to go. You mix up a little bit more epoxy and come in and do the rest of your gauges, however many you have. And like I say, let that set for about 5 minutes and you're good to go. Now, the one thing that I didn't do with this is I didn't paint the needles and do all that stuff. A lot of times what I'll do is put a decal down. Excuse me. I actually put a decal down first, or I'll go in and paint that black and do some dry brushing, or dry brush silver to create the bezel around the outside, and then do this. This will be your final step on your dash. So if you have like a wood grain decal that needs to go down, that has to go down first. And then you do your painting on your gauges or your decal on your gauge, and then come in and do the epoxy work on it. And when you're done, it creates a very nice looking effect. It's very 3D looking. And what I'll do is the next video that I put up probably later on tonight, I will show you how this came out on that video. So stay tuned for that one. And like always, if you have any questions or concerns, just leave me a comment on the video. I'll be more than glad to get back to you and answer any questions you have on it. And like always, I thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.